Um, Appreciate everybody coming today. We've got an exciting opportunity to talk about. Operator, CEO of Crest Resources, Glenn Hudgens, is with us today. He's going to assist in the presentation and answer questions. We've got Richard Hunt, one of our total partners, Matt Martis, and myself. So to start with, I want to give a couple of high points here. First of all, we've been in a relationship with Glenn for over 11 years. We participated in 3 different prospects, so we've had a working relationship that goes back over a decade. This particular prospect is particularly exciting because it has a very large acreage position we're going to talk about. It has existing production with existing wells, and it has a lot of upside in a formation that was originally overlooked, that with stimulation performs exceptionally well. We have a look-alike with a local company up there that's only a few miles away, and we're excited. We're gonna participate in the prospect with 9,000 acres. We're going to drill our first well, a vertical well, in September. So things are going to happen real fast. So we're going to start with our PowerPoint presentation. And I should have had that queued up. There we go. All right. The Dead Horse Creek Development Opportunity 2023.
All right.
You like the name, Richard? Okay. This is the executive summary. This is in Wyoming. This is the Powder River Basin, which is a prolific basin. Glenn, you might just talk about some of the high points of the basin and what our deal is here.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. This is, a snapshot of northeast Wyoming. The town of Gillette is about 18 miles east of the Dead Horse Creek area, right on the interstate. So we don't have any issues that have been seen in Wyoming, Montana with trucking crude around or access problems. The interstate runs directly through the field. In fact, half the field's on the north side and half the field's on the south side of the interstate. So there's also an oil terminal just off the interstate in the field. So really no problem getting there in most any kind of weather. But this is an area that, there's been some really exciting vertical Parkman wells, plays at about 6,900 feet. You can drill it for, we have it AFE at 950,000. Prices have been moving up and down a bit, so I've run a sensitivity case for the vertical well at 1.2 million. The oil prices in the last year have averaged about $3 off the board. So certainly good prices for this area. For $1 million to have a chance at those kind of reserves is pretty exciting. If we find something like that, it's a 25 to 1 on your money. That's not what we're projecting, but that's what's been done in the immediate area.
You might note we had one of the most respected engineering firms, Cawley, Gillespie and Associates, that have done some of the economic analysis on these wells based on their reservoir engineering. Third party, high quality.
That's right. Cawley Gillespie is one of certainly the top 3, probably the top consulting engineering firm in the country for oil and gas reserves. They gave us horizontal reserves of 650,000 barrels of well as approved undeveloped category, which is the lowest risk of drilling categories. They, I think, have been, I'll show you, I believe they're quite low on their estimate at 137,000 barrels for the vertical wells, on also approved undeveloped drilling. But even if that's what we find, it's right at a 4 to 1, and that
but that's obviously good production on a vertical well that costs $950,000 to have, and that's the conservative estimate of producible reserves from a vertical well.
That's right. It gives you about a 74% internal rate of return at these well costs. So even at that, which I believe is a low estimate, it's a pretty exciting deal.
You know, another thing to point out, Glenn and I have talked about this going on back and forth over the last 2 years. And you've made a lot of progress in actually assimilating additional acreage in that time frame.
We have. We bought the field in October of 21 and we've actually been chasing the deal since 2017 and without going into a too lengthy a discussion of that, but we weren't able to buy it from an existing owner that had a lot of debt against it. He ended up selling it to another operator. Unfortunately, that operator died of COVID, and we were able to buy the deal back from his heirs and get it going.
What are you using for oil prices when you mentioned a while ago the 25-to-1 return?
That'd be based on the strip, but we ran two cases. The strip, as of in this case, kind of an SEC case, the end of January this year, and a $70 flat case. And economics are very similar at either case. With on the vertical wells, the future cash flow is $3.9 million on the strip case, $4 million on the 70 flat case, 80% internal rate of return, strip 74%.
And these are based on
flat.
what 130 some odd thousand barrels.
That's right.
Of recoverable reserves.
135,000.
Okay.
So the economics are strong even at that. Gives you development costs of about $9.
Okay.
This is another shot of the Powder River Basin. There's several significant operators up here. It's one of EOG's top plays. Devon's in the area. Ballard is just to the southeast. There's a number of substantial operators that are chasing this stuff.
One of the things we're keying off of is a look-alike formation, same formation that Ballard has been drilling horizontals in for several years now.
Since really 2010, 2011. And we'll talk about that more in detail. They've got a new well from kind of poor reservoir quality compared to what we have that looks like it's going to 1.37 million barrels on the horizontal. Horizontals are about 5.5 million. And
What size horizontal are you talking about?
they're drilling about 1.5 miles. We're looking at 1 mile horizontals to start, and the way our acreage position is, we can go to 2 if we elect to. We want to test the idea with a 1 mile horizontal.
We're not going to make that determination until we drill the first well, because if we get the kind of economics that are possible with vertical development, this could turn into a vertical development play, and there's enough room in our acreage to do as many as 30, 40.
30, maybe 40 wells vertically.
In
We
the
can drill
9,000
15,
Yeah.
15 to 17 horizontals if we elect to go that way. But I mean, honestly, if we can go out here and drill wells that there's a couple of key wells we'll discuss more later on that give us a 5 to 10 to 1 on our money, then we'll recommend we just keep drilling verticals. If we come up with a well that is a good producer, but a little bit disappointing, more like the wells in the area, then we'll propose a horizontal.
Horizontal, you can typically get a multiple, obviously, of vertical production, and Glenn's had a lot of experience in the Granite Wash, I know, with doing horizontals versus the verticals with multiple. I mean, it was 9, 10 to 1.
9, 10 to 1 on gas wells, yes. And I'll show you in a moment that Ballard has averaged, this new well is 12, 13 to 1. And there's nothing exotic about what they did, very standard frac for the area.
A quick company overview.
Crest is a deal I started January of '87 in Oklahoma City and moved it to Tulsa in '89. The management team working this got over 150 combined years experience in the industry. Lead geologist on this is an ex-Exxon and Amoco hand that got a lot of gray hair. There's some gray hair in this group, no doubt about it. But we all have our hair, surprisingly. But the land guy working this stuff was VP of land for George Anderman, noted operator in Denver. He's worked all deals all over the world. Andy Dunn, real sharp guy. We've drilled under Crest over 300 wells with an 82% drilling success rate over a 25-year period since '95. So this isn't our first rodeo. We've looked at deals like this that are more engineering based than geologic. I think I believe, quite low risk geologically, but typically they have an engineering bent to them, and that's why we've been able to post this kind of drilling success. We're careful with what we do. There's no guarantees in this business, and as always, past success doesn't guarantee future success. But I believe in what we're doing here. I'm putting my own money in the deal, and I'm excited about this.
Glenn, by the way, is a petroleum engineer and has had a lot of experience with similar developments over the years.
This is kind of a history of Crest. We don't need to belabor much of this stuff.
Those are areas, though, that you've been active in going back 25 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Areas we operate in Mid-Continent, South Texas, and this deal in Northeast Wyoming.
Okay.
Is this the first one that you all have done in Wyoming?
As an operator, I started my career in Riverton, Wyoming with Amoco right out of college. So this area is, an area we were working at the time, and an area that's always been kind of close to my heart. Honestly, as a young engineer in those days, I had no idea how good some of the production that Amoco had in the area really was. Looking back on it, it's kind of shocking, the quality of reserves. So it's an area I've always had an interest in going back to. This is just this is a kind of drilling success rate over the period I mentioned. Starting this deal, like any new venture, it's nice to be lucky early, and we didn't drill a dry hole for a long time. But it was back in the days where you could pick up low risk, increased density drilling from the majors, because times were tough. I started this deal in January of '87. I was a partner in a company, Falcon Engineering, before that in the '84 to '87 time frame, and oil hit $10 a barrel in December of '86, and I started this deal in January of '87. So it wasn't an ideal time to start, but it was sure fun early.
Okay, here we go.
That original.
You actually have 9,000 acres now.
Yes,
correct?
this is the original field drilled by Exxon and Chevron, really Humble and the California Oil Company before they became Exxon and Chevron, was drilled in the 50s. It's an 8,000 acre block in the old field. We've spent the last couple of years acquiring acreage adjacent to that block where our drill site actually is and some of the development. But there's two reservoirs that produce out here, both in the Parkman. The Ferguson is the uppermost reservoir in the Parkman, and the upper Parkman is more or less 50 to 100 feet below that. Made a couple of million barrels in the field from both horizons.
This is all vertical development.
Number of wells in the field have made over 400,000 barrels vertically. In both zones. There's a 500,000 barrel well in the Ferguson. There's a 470,000 barrel well in the Parkman. So those are the stars, certainly, but there's a number of wells that have made over 300,000 barrels vertically.
You've got Devon that's active out there.
Devon is active out here. Anschutz is active out here. Ballard. There's a number of people in the immediate area that know what they're doing and have had good success.
Okay. We ready to move on to some maps here?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
This is a bigger area of the prospect area that we're talking about. This is our play right in here. But what you'll notice on this map, these are Parkman sand trends, and you can chase them for 15, 20 miles. They're just near shore beach sands as the ocean prograded or regressed, and they're just lineaments that, can't quite chase them with a ruler, but it's close. Devin came in, did a few wells up here that are in our type curve. I don't like the quality of them. They're in a tighter portion of the reservoir. And early frac technology, some of them completed open hole, some are uncemented liners, and just awful frac technology. But nonetheless, they're going to average 360,000 barrels for a horizontal well.
Which is not bad. And are those verticals at 244? Right there?
Yes, the average EUR on the Parkman wells is 244,000 barrels.
And I'd love to have 244,000 barrel verticals at 6,900 feet.
That's what
you
we're
know?
hoping for, certainly.
Yeah.
We're up dip of production in the field in both the Ferguson and the Parkman. We're inside a well that's made 160,000 barrels. It's going to over 200,000 barrels. More important, it's been on a 2% decline since the mid-90s. And we believe that indicates it's seeing a bigger reservoir than it can drain, so the area is not depleted.
We are actually drilling our well within very close proximity. We're in the same, quarter
We'll be
section?
in the same quarter section with that well. It's in the far northeast. We'll be in the southwest of the northeast quarter. So within the same, but I mean far enough away to where we're not worried about depletion, but pretty close and well located geologically. This is an area down here that we'll talk a bit about more about with the when we get to the horizontal development. The key to this is Ballard had a well where our original reserves were about 1 million barrels. Now it looks like 1.37 million barrels. From a well right here that drills right by 3 vertical wells right here, that the reservoir quality there is much less than what we see in the field and what we're inside. So if they can make 1 million barrel well down there, it makes us pretty optimistic about our horizontal potential here. The key to this deal is these wells only average 35 to 40,000 barrels on the vertical wells. We average 200 up here.
So the potential that we have, we think is greater, obviously. But this has been a very economic development, and they've been doing this for how long, Glenn?
Started out in 2010, 2011. The key well that we'll talk about more later, the Ballard 12-8, has made 336,000 barrels since May of 21. So in less than 2 years of data that we have, it's made 336,000.
And you put a decline curve on that where it is, and it's over 1 million barrels total actual product.
Projected ultimate recovery, yes.
Ultimate recovery. Okay.
So Glenn, go back to that a second, Scott.
Okay.
So obviously those are wells, the black dots.
Yes.
So how did there be such a proliferation in that area and not extended over there where we are? Why didn't somebody ever drill over there?
Well, that's an excellent question, and we'll get to that in a moment. But in short, the thick for the Ferguson is right here. And as the Ferguson got edgy, they stopped drilling. The Ferguson's a great reservoir. The Parkman, based on what we see, this is a Parkman development. What always happens is you go up dip, it gets tight, move into the next bar, it's down dip and wet, and you move up dip out of the water. But a number of these Ferguson wells, the Parkman was marginally wet where it was still low structurally. So they decided that the Ferguson is the better target, and it was where they were. And as it got edgy, they stopped drilling, but the thick of the Parkman is here, right here. The thick of the Ferguson's here. So as the Ferguson started to get edgy, they stopped drilling without really exploiting the Parkman. And then you've got
through the Ferguson and get to the Parkman?
Yes, and a number of these wells, there's 4 wells in the field that produce from both. So we know it's productive. And we're inside a well that I mentioned is going to over 200,000 barrels. So you'll see in a moment, it gives us a 4-way inside shot on the sand. Among wells that either produce or have it behind pipe look good and will be 100 foot up dip to a producer. So it's just that the thick for Ferguson didn't overlay the thick for Parkman, and that gives us the opportunity.
It was overlooked. It was tighter than the Ferguson.
Where's our 9,000 acres.
Let's move to the next map, Scott.
Okay, let's do that. Let's keep, we'll come back to some of this to show the relative reservoir. There's the map there.
This is the heart of the Ferguson production right through here. This is the 8,000 acres I mentioned, covers the field where the Ferguson was and our up dip position in the thick of this bar. This is the up dip producer.
And since then, Glenn, we've got another map that shows where you've added another 1,000 or 2,000 acres in there to the right of the red of the unit.
Yeah, this is, I was hoping you would have opened up that later.
All right, well,
PowerPoint
let's
message.
find it. Let's see where it is. Is that?
Well, this is the acreage right here. All this map does is strip off these two parallel bars that are perspective for what we're doing. So this is the 8,000 acres. We've added on about another 1,000 acres that now includes the east half of 15 right in here.
And we also,
And
thing I
that's
didn't
our drill
realize,
site.
is those little squares are part of our acreage as well.
This
It's
is over
isolated
here
over there.
in the bridge draw field.
And there are 5 existing producers in here, marginal, but rework plans for those, which
That's
we'll
right.
look at that some more. Let's find, there's the map that's got the,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it's got the additional acreage in it.
This is the additional acreage. We now include some in the west half of 15. And we are also we own 15% of this 200,000 barrel producer that goes with the deal. So what I'm proposing to do is you guys will come in on the same basis as me. Everybody will be in the existing production. You'll be in the disposal wells. I'm not going to be charging you to dispose of water in my well where I'm making money and you're not.
So we're all on the same level.
So we'll all be we'll be in the production together where there's some nice workovers to do that I think will maximize value of the existing reserves, but we'll all do it together.
How's the acreage prices compared to what we've been doing in Oklahoma?
Let's go back to that regional map.
Okay,
What we're doing, we're acquiring, the front end cost on this thing's about $950,000.
Okay,
That gets you right at 9,000 acres, so that's $100 an acre.
pretty good.
which is
Cawley
dirt
Gillespie,
cheap.
I mean, compared to.
Cawley Gillespie has also given us $750,000 worth of value in the existing production at 12 barrels a day. And we're well above that
So
now.
if you take that out of the equation, we're only paying 200 grand for 9,000 acres. It's pennies per acre.
Yeah,
There's some guys that are leasing right down in here just south of Ballard at 1,000 an acre. So the way we're presenting this deal, we think so.
There's a lot of value
There's a lot of value.
in the acreage position. And these guys have created a lot of value. Ballard has with all the newer production that they've done with the horizontals.
That's right.
Who's operating these existing wells that we're purchasing?
Crest is.
Oh, Crest.
Yeah, you closed on the original acreage, 69 at 7,000 acres, a year or two ago, didn't you?
October of 21.
Yeah. And they have reworked one well most recently, Richard, and it's too early to tell, but it jumped from, what was it initially?
We're making about 3 barrels a day.
And it jumped, this is like in the last week, to 25 barrels a day with recompletion. That's in our deal.
What
And-
kind of expense was that?
That costs about 70 grand.
Again, exceptional, if it holds anywhere near that. That's, okay, where are we going? Which, are we looking for another map here?
Let's
Or do we
go
want
back one slide. This starts down in the bridge draw area, and let me kind of go back and forth with this. This cross section starts down here in bridge draw and moves up this way. So we don't have the map and the cross section at the same time, but it'll illustrate what we're doing. You'll see it go from 470,000 barrels to well made 360 barrels at a tight edge, moves across and gets wet in here, and then moves up dip. So
And that's that cross section of
that's
those
what
wells
this
right
is
there.
right here.
Yeah.
The Barlow 4320's made 472,000 barrels from this Parkman sand. The Ferguson down here is wet, so we know that it doesn't have anything to do with it. But these are the two sands that I mentioned. The Ferguson's the upper one, the Parkman's the lower one. You move across, move down to the Barlow 2120, 250,000 barrel well. Then you go to the tight edge. This well made 360 barrels. No net pay. Then you move across to the Unit 19 well. Now this is one of the wells we want to work over. It was only perforated in the Ferguson.
And that's that well right here on the map.
So it's got a good looking Parkman sand below it. We've cleaned it out deep enough. Really good looking porosity, 12 ohms of resistivity. Certainly looks productive in this Parkman sand. And we want to just re-enter it perforated. We think after a modest frac, it could make 50, 70 barrels a day of production. That'd be pretty exciting.
And that's just one of the workovers. And this is the Murdoch Federal, which is really our key well, the one to the right.
Yeah, and same kind of thing. I mean, this is an easy correlation, for this to be the very same Parkman sand that, has made 250, 470,000 barrels in the adjoining bar. It's productive, I'll show you in a moment, in our bar also. But the Ferguson's pinched out by the time you get up to this Murdoch Federal. This is the well I mentioned. It's going over 200,000 barrels, flat decline. And good looking porosity. It's got 21 feet of net, as I recall, 21 or 24 feet of net. That is a really good sideboard, if you will, for what we're trying to do. One of the keys out here, and there's a curve in a plot in the package, that all the wells fracked with over 35, 40,000 pounds of prop are good producers. This well pumped 28,000 gallons of fluid, but no reported prop. And so I've said a number of times, fracking without props, kind of like mining without piers. It's just not very smart. This is a sandstone. You're not going to etch it by fracking it. So you can crack it open, but as soon as you don't put prop in it, it's going to close back up. So it's like you got no effect from the frac.
And when was that well drilled, Glenn?
81.
81. So virtually no stimulation on that well. And we're going to come down in the same quarter section. We'll show, but do you want to go to another map now, Glenn?
Let's go to let's go back to our Parkman sand map.
Okay.
Slide, I think 18, something like that.
I've got to get back to there we go. Is it one we're already on?
One more, two more. There we go. So what I did is I showed you this cross section. Now this is the bridge draw area. They did some workovers down here that we won't belabor, but went back and acidized and reperforated the zone and tripled production on several wells. Our B3 well is right here, and the B3 and the B4, these two wells are part of the production package. This is the disposal well.
For rework.
I'm sorry?
They're eligible for rework.
Yes. And we can go in and reperforate, add some perfs. On that earlier slide, let me do a combination here. This again is the 470,000 barrel producer. What we're mapping is actually this upper sand, the very upper piece here. They perforated way deep in the Parkman where we have additional potential. But in fact, the Murdoch Federal, this lower section here, we're not giving any credit to, but it looks productive also. So, good looking chance to add some additional perfs in the B3 and B4 and re-stimulate those, and we should see a nice increase in production. So, with success on some of the acid jobs like the one we did last week, we're probably going to want to work over every well in the field that we produce. There's 7 producers and 3 injectors that go with it. One of the injectors, what we'll do, this is our vertical test, will be right here.
That's the first well we're going to drill.
Right here.
That'll be in September.
Now the well I showed you with the good looking recompletion potential is right here. This 10 Ike Federal well, great looking pay. Let's go back to well, before we do that, I'm going to show you the 10 Ike. This is the 19 well. You've got 23 feet of net here, 24 feet of net at the Murdoch Federal. We're going to drill right in between them.
So that's an inside, a 3 or 4 way inside shot.
Yes. 3-way inside shot on wells that produced from it. This one, and this one. This wasn't fracked. It was drilled in the 50s. Didn't get much of a rate. Certainly today you'd frack it and you'd have a decent producer.
And are those existing wells vertical or horizontal?
These are all vertical. out
Okay.
here. Right. In this area, it's all vertical.
Yeah.
And old wells, they're older wells. Okay, where are we going now, Glenn?
Let's go back to the Murdoch Federal. Go back 3 to the cross sections. That's the curve right here.
Oh, that one there? Okay.
Yeah, this is the 10 Ike Federal I mentioned. It's got 21 feet of net, good looking porosity. Pretty exciting development in the Parkman here. This well was not fracked. It only made 32,000 barrels, but it was converted to an injector in the old water flood very early. It would have been one of the best wells in the field if they'd fracked it and left it producing.
And that
Really
is
strong.
going to be our disposal well, correct?
That's one of the disposal wells that we'll take our water to, and on a horizontal, it'll save you 300 grand of infrastructure, tanks, and everything that goes with it. That we'll just take it to our existing facilities. All we'll need is a tank and a transfer pump on location, and it'll be going in our own disposal with just power cost. So we'll be drilling in between these 2 wells. This is the updip Murdoch Federal with 24 feet of net.
Okay.
Any question? Well, let's go on down to that map.
Yeah, we need to, obviously show them the look-alike on
We
the.
will. One more. Yeah. So again, this is where we're going to drill. These heavier lines are potential horizontal locations. With this orientation and these skinny lines, I didn't fill them all in, but those are all potential horizontals. We drill 17 horizontals or 25, maybe as many as 40 vertical wells.
That's over a period of time, obviously.
What we want to do is drill the vertical here, produce it for about 90 days, be sure we've learned all we can from it, and then based on how it's performing, either come in and drill a horizontal right here within our unit, or potentially propose another vertical and proceed ahead with that.
The second well, we're anticipating at this point, could be drilled this year, possibly November.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right?
That's the second triangle up there?
I'm sorry?
The second triangle up
Yeah,
there?
that's the other vertical location.
That would be real helpful as far as well control for the horizontals. If we decide to drill verticals, we could certainly stay in closer and work our way up there. This will be a nice well for geologic control, but it's a bit of a jump that we don't necessarily need to take.
So you don't have the second well really identified yet?
It's a moving target. It
But
is.
it will be vertical, not horizontal?
If the first well's successful, is exciting vertical.
Yeah.
You
If
can
not-
get a multiple, and this is what's proven out in this, and in general development, you can get a multiple, I think you're projecting 6 or 7 times on an oil play here with a horizontal versus the vertical. So the economics, if they work better, depending on the first well, then our second well would be a horizontal. But if we get great production on the first vertical, continue the vertical development.
What is the mix, oil and gas?
Let's go down
Just
about
very
5
nice.
slides and look at that decline on the Murdoch.
Good thing.
Go where now?
Let's look at the Murdoch, this one right here.
Okay,
This is the decline curve on the Murdoch Federal, the up-dip 200,000 barrel well. It's made 160,000 barrels and only 127 million, so it doesn't make a lot of gas. But more important, it doesn't make a lot of water. This is a 60% oil cut line right here. This is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60%. It's settled out now at about 50%, real steady. Well, this is also a 2% decline, going back to the 90s.
Wow.
So it's really flat. And it's only made 110,000 barrels of water, but 160,000 barrels of oil. Now, I might point out, inflated the scale on the water by a factor of 10 because at a 50% oil cut, the water and oil just lay over each other, and it's hard to interpret and illustrate the oil curve. Doesn't make 10 times as much water. That's just the way I've handled the scale for illustration purposes. It's only reported 110,000 barrels of water. So these wells don't make a lot of water. Doesn't take a big pumping unit. You don't need a submersible or anything like that to produce these wells.
Also, the gas, percentage-wise, Richard, is less than 90% in terms of the value. You're asking what?
Yeah.
It's mostly oil.
What, we have electrical infrastructure to power the pumps, what do we do?
All a new well, you could probably run the pump off the gas, but all the wells in the field now, the gas has declined to the point they're on electric power.
Initially, though, you're saying these wells were powered by the gas they produced.
We can just as easily sell the gas and run them on electric power. We're going to be there sooner or later. There is a pipeline at this well, a little more than a quarter mile away.
So we've got pipeline.
So we do have pipe infrastructure in the field that we can sell.
We can sell the gas if we choose. But
Oh,
we
no
could.
pressure problems like we've had in the past?
He's talking about where we've had a lot of back pressure on the line with new wells coming on with Robertson. I don't know what the structure is out here. Glenn, you may know.
Yeah, we can control the pressure. It'd be a low pressure pipeline, and that's one of, it's a little bit of a complication, but 127 million is not insignificant, but it's not a big factor here. If we could run it on gas initially, it makes sense. And by the way, we're intending to move an existing pumping unit from our 23-21 well over to here, so we shouldn't have to buy a pumping unit for our initial vertical well. Come through the deal.
Is it harder to operate relative to Oklahoma being cold and the weather's a little different up there?
That blizzard will blow in every now and then. Absolutely will. Yeah, it's northeast Wyoming. It's cold out there in the winter. So, I don't want to. 95% of the time it's pretty arid, and 95% of the time in the winter it's just cold. It's not really a problem, but a blizzard can blow in and dump a foot of snow on the ground. So I just soon not have a drilling rig out there in the winter time.
Right, which is the impetus to get going on it.
Yeah, because my crystal ball's not real
So
sharp.
everything goes right,
Weather.
we'll have 2 wells drilled
This year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from our standpoint, we're gonna establish one partnership, Total Wyoming Partners One, and we'll fund the initial acquisition, and we'll fund the first well, and infrastructure costs, reworks that are done in that time frame. Then, once the decision is made, horizontal or vertical on the second well, we'll form another partnership, which, just like we do in all our deals, we'll reimburse or balance the ownership between the two for the deal, for the infrastructure. And then we'll raise new dollars. The people in the first deal will have first right of refusal to participate in the second. And we'll just carry that on, but like to point out, at some point here, with the kind of productivity that's projected, if we hit those production numbers, this thing could be self-sustaining. In other words, the cash flow could pay for the additional development of another 10 or 15 vertical wells, or 5 or 10 horizontals, whatever. Once you have cash flow in hand.
Do you have the operational capabilities to rework some of these wells same time we're drilling wells?
Yes. Yeah, the rework's pretty easy. You can
You
ideally.
gonna factor that in on Wyoming one?
We're gonna build in money in our budget. I'm gonna ask Glenn, how many do you wanna rework in this first 90 days? We'll build the money into our budget. We'll have it in our raise. So, we will have adequate capital to do whatever development we're gonna do out here.
And these workovers are
Rework takes how long?
3-4 days. If everything goes well.
He doesn't want to, I ask the same questions. He doesn't want to jump out and just start focusing on all the reworks. We want to do it in a logical progression, where you do one, you see what, and now analyze what you did, how it performed.
Sure.
And then, take it a step at a time.
Right,
Which the
but
first step he's done. He's done the first one.
It doesn't take 3 months to rework it.
No.
No.
No, we can go as fast as we want.
And to drill a vertical out there, we're only talking, what, a week?
We,
Yeah.
Got plenty of rigs out there? Rig hands?
Yes, for what we're trying to do. I mean, that's one thing about this depth. It kind of stays out of the line of fire for some of the bigger operators that are, drilling them deeper, more expensive wells. We can do this with a 750 horsepower rig. We don't need 1,500 or 2,000. If we can get one for the same cost, that's fine. But certainly, we'll be drilling. We're talking to a company, Capstar, that has a fleet of smaller rigs that are just ideal for this kind of vertical well.
Since the majors, some of those guys are drilling, do we have any of the seismic data on any of the fields?
There's really no seismic data in here, and there's one piece of data that'd be good to see, and it's more important for the Ferguson than it is for the. It's more important for the Ferguson. Let me show you the Ferguson map here, and it is for the Bartlett. Is the location of this fault to the south.
Okay.
Because there's a 300,000 barrel well right across the fault in the Ferguson. And there's a great location right here for Ferguson. These well made 367,000 barrels vertically. The 9 was drilled, they lost the hole, twinned it literally on the same location with the 9R, made 367,000 barrels between them at 6,900 feet. These two wells saw some depletion from that well when they were drilled, and it affected their production, but a location down here to be far enough away from production there and across the fault from this guy, I think it's a heck of a vertical Ferguson
But
location.
because the fault isolates this well, so we're not worried about
Not worried about
reservoir
depletion from this.
depletion there.
So
And-
our well's gonna be in the same section. You said northeast, southwest, something, so what about depletion in ours?
It's, that existing well's drained 62 acres, and we're gonna be on the far corner of a 160. So we've essentially got 100 acres under it.
We have a map that can show where that location is.
While we're, let's go ahead and, let's jump down and talk about the Ferguson.
Is it, where is it?
It'd be up higher,
Up higher, okay.
right here. This is the Ferguson development, and what you'll notice that the thick for the Parkman sand, is in 15, west half of 10, east half of, or south of 33. It's over here, is where the thick for Parkman is. And what you see happen, like this well got to, it's the numbers below are the net pay and the numbers above are the well number. So you've got 8 feet of net here, and they didn't drill anything farther northeast of that. Same sort of thing happened. You see it start to get edgy, and they didn't drill in the gut of where the Parkman would be. But Parkman's productive in these 4 wells, and good looking pay. But before we get off the Ferguson, this well made 200. The number 5 made 240,000 barrels. Again, had a little casing problem. Twinned it, made another 297. So that basically
Out
one
of the same
location
location.
there. Excuse me.
Out of the same location, they twinned.
Same location. That's 530,000 barrels, 540,000 barrels in one vertical well. Pretty dang good production for 6,900 feet.
It's incredible production.
388,000 barrels up here, 333 here. So
Those are all out of the Ferguson.
that's all out of the Ferguson. And so, you can see why the Ferguson was getting more attention initially. But on the other hand, they hadn't developed and certainly didn't frack these wells in the park. So we're now in a position where we think we've got the same kind of potential with modern fracks, develop this Parkman sand and see these kind of potential results. And it's not outlandish when we've seen it happen with 470,000 barrels here in the Parkman. So let's go back 2
How thick
slides
is
to
the
the.
apartment? Is on that other graph you showed over there, it was a couple times the apartment was equally as thick as the Ferguson.
It is.
When the
24
Ferguson
feet.
ran out.
It is. So I think we've got.
Well, wait till you see the comparison on the Ballard lookalike. we've got the logs on those wells. So,
Let's go back, kind of last thing on this piece of the Parkman, right here. This cross section goes, well, this 397,000 barrel produced or commingled in Parkman and Ferguson. I can't tell you which produced what, but that's actually the number 7. That's the disposal well for the South Block field, portion of the field. Kind of interesting. There's a north block here that we're not involved in. This is the South Block, even though it's our northern block. This is the Caballo block, and Humble and California Oil commingled or filed an application to make this a combined water flood back in the 60s and started putting water in the ground. Awful engineering technology. But that's what these old injectors, the 7, the 10-Ike, now the Caballo 1 injection well, and the Bridge Draw 18 are injectors that, well, not the 18, but these 2 wells are injectors that were part of the old water flood.
which will be our disposal
They're
well.
our disposal wells.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, we'll lay a line right over to our own disposal well here. And all these wells have good looking Parkman in them along with the Ferguson.
Will we sell capacity to any of the other operators in the area for the disposal well, or it'll just be for us?
We're going to convert this one to a commercial well, so we're in position to do that if we want. But right now, I don't have any plans to do that. But I mean, they're getting $2 a barrel for injection. Disposal wells, a little different game.
We know about that.
I own a disposal in the Texas Panhandle. I'm getting a quarter. It's a little different game. But yeah, let's go ahead to that lookalike for Ballard.
Okay, and where
Let's
is
go
that
to
up or
the
down from here?
cross down a couple more to, or excuse me, it's up to the cross sections.
Yeah, the big map, isn't it?
Yeah. You just passed it. Let's go. Well, let's go back to the big map.
Yeah, let's do that first.
Okay. So what I'm going to show you is a map of it right here. I'm going to show you a cross section that will illustrate how our area ties to the Ballard area. So this is again our Parkman map. The 10-Ike to the Murdoch Federal, down to this well down in section 1, and then the Ballard horizontal drills right up here, and I'm going to show you these 3 wells that it goes right beside. So, I mean, what's that, 6-7 miles away from the development we want to make? So let's go down to the cross section, Scott.
Okay.
Couple, yeah. One more, right here. Oh, back, yeah.
That's the other way. It's the big ones up here.
No, do
Are you
back-
talking about the cross section?
Yeah, one more. One more. Right.
There you go.
Okay, so this is the 10-Ike Federal that I've talked about. Would have been a big well if they'd fracked it, kept it on. Good looking Parkman sand development. It's got 21 feet of net. Now, I work as a geologic engineer, and what especially geologic engineers and geologists like to do is try and get a total evaluation of reservoir quality. And the way we often do that is multiply the porosity times the thickness. And porosity, the porosity symbol's a feet. So a pH plot or pH calculation will give you the combination if it's thick or is it just good reservoir quality or is it thin and tight. What are we looking at? Well, at the Murdoch, you got 3.5 pH. You got 21 feet, over 14% porosity. Good looking pay.
Wait, sorry, I was trying to, excuse me, I was trying to
Yeah.
blow that up.
Okay. I have it pull a bunch of maps out on that table. Then you have to mess with
What happened to me here? I keep.
There you go.
All right. Maybe I can get it out here. Like, nope. Trying to remember how I did a blow up here on a minute ago, and I can't get it to blow
Yeah,
up.
click
now.
on here and it should give you a slider on the right. No, it's advancing.
Wait a minute. There you go. There you go. Got it. Should be blowing it up. Nope.
I'll just
Sorry guys for the,
How will we do fast here?
sorry for the,
Well, we can work with this, but
let me
I don't know
see.
why you're not getting your Zoom. How do you get back to the?
Well, I can tell you,
No,
with
the-
the escape here, get back to this,
Yeah, you got your slider down there.
and I can blow this up, yeah, there we go.
Okay,
There you go.
so you got 21 feet. This should focus a little bit better here in a second, but 21 feet of good-looking net, 3.5 pH. This is the Murdoch Federal, our key well. Looks like it's going to 270,000 barrels. Got 24 feet of net, 3.9 pH. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the average in this portion of the field down here is only 35 or 40,000 barrels. Now, Ballard drilled in some of the best part of the field, 35, 40,000 barrels in that play. And so they went by a well that made 100,000 barrels, but it's only got 9 feet of net. It's only got 1.1 pH. Next well, only 5 feet of pay. 9 here, 5 here. The last one, again, has 1.1 pH. So you got 1.1 is as good as it gets for what they drilled right beside. Made a 100,000 barrel well. That's not bad. We've
But
got three.
these are vertical wells, and the horizontal's done over 1 million, where it's got EU.
EUR of over 1 million. It's done 330, but we've got 3.9 pH. They've got 1.1. We've got almost 4 times the reservoir quality in our play as where they drilled 1 million barrel horizontal.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's really
So I
impressive.
mean, if they can make 1 million barrels, we think we've got pretty exciting horizontal potential.
Yeah, we've been looking for 1 million barrel wells for
a while.
years, long time. So we're ready.
Let's slide down here.
Okay.
Keep coming down. Let's look at the decline on that Ballard well.
Where is it?
Just keep coming. Right here. Right there.
Right there.
Okay.
Now we got to get it back down where we can see it. Here you go.
All right. This is my initial projection in green on the oil. This goes out to 1 million barrels. Well, I've plotted the more recent production since I made that initial plot, and it's all well above the curve. It's made 330,000 barrels since 5 of 21.
That's
All right.
strong.
That's
Yeah.
impressive.
Really strong. If you look at the next plot, the more up-to-date plot, next slide, this is now the curve. And it goes to 1.37 million barrels.
Almost 1.4 million barrels, and that's in a well. That's in a well that's in 1/3 or 1/4 the indicated porosity and thickness
And thickness.
of the parkman.
We've got a easy way to say it, we got a lot better reservoir quality than this well's direct offsets. So that's
And
what
there-
makes
Is there a reason we don't want to start with a horizontal?
well.
A lot
let-
cheaper to do vertical, and you
I
can
understand.
prove
I see.
prove the reservoir quality. And if you get a 500,000 barrel vertical, that's better than 1 million barrel horizontal,
Sure.
because it's 1/5 the
1/5
price.
the cost.
Yeah.
Let's look at this slide right here.
Okay.
This is an earlier projection, on a look-alike. This is a look-alike to the Murdoch Federal, going to 250,000 barrels. At this price forecast, $72 a barrel, and based on a $920,000 AFE, which may be a little bit low now, but it's a 13-to-1 on your money.
13-to-1, and the payout. But this assumed a start date of what? That's an 8.
2 of 22. That's a 16-month payout.
Yeah.
And that's without giving it a big rate. This is only a 25% increase over what the Murdoch Federal did, assuming a little bit better frac technology. I think we could easily double that production
We've got 4 times the,
and shorten this payout.
so you're only using a quarter, but the
Well, now
data
keep in
suggests that
mind,
we've
this
got
is,
4
the
times.
example here is on the Murdoch, which has more pay, but
Got it.
not frac.
Got it.
The other example was against the Ballard wells, the
Got it.
horizontal.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if we can come out here and drill vertical wells at a 10-to-1, why do we need to try horizontal? I mean,
I vote 10-to-1 on all the wells and 900. That's, yeah, let's go.
you know, and again, this is projected.
Sure.
Let's scroll down and look at the financials on the verticals. All right, let's stop right here.
You want that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, now this is a type curve, and you know it's what we engineers like to do. You got a bunch of wells here. Well, you know what are they going to do? So this is computer generated best fit of all this data, and it comes out to 219,000 barrels.
Average.
Average.
These are all verticals.
Verticals.
That works.
Only in the Parkman, not the Ferguson wells.
And these are relatively the same
These are
zone
existing
we're
wells
gonna
or
produce.
Yeah.
projected wells?
Department of
Excuse
the
me?
same formation.
These are existing wells or projected wells?
Existing wells, you know, like the wells down at Bridge Draw.
It's all the
those
wells we've been looking at.
You know, the
Richard,
2120, the 4320 that I pointed out.
They're part- these are
production
part-
here.
Most of those wells there are Ferguson.
Yeah, this is from, you know, our lookalike right here.
Those
So
are
these
Parkman.
Oh,
Parkman only producers give you this type curve.
Oh, okay.
If you average in these down dip tight wells and the wet wells and everything else, you get an average of 135,000 barrels, everything. And that's, colleague Gillespie only gave it 137. So this is why I think their projection is low. I mean, if you're adding in the wells that, you know, are basically completed dry holes, I think it's a little unfair. That's not what you're looking for. So if you get a curve of wells that have actually produced a meaningful amount and had, I think I cut it off at 8 feet of net sand, then you get a 219,000 barrel type curve.
Which again would be excellent production out of vertical wells.
So
$100,000.
go down to this one. This is Collie Gillespie's numbers, 135,000. This is a Collie Gillespie output. If you zoom out just a little, you'll see their header.
Oh, the header. All right, I need to go back to
No,
the.
just slide that back a little. Other way.
Is that what you want?
Other way.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
See, this is the Collie Gillespie run. This is
Which
their
these guys are
output.
super conservative. I mean, an engineering firm for third party. This kind of stuff banks will look at.
This is their 135,000 barrel case. It's still a 5-to-1 on your money and a 80% internal rate of return at
What?
strip price.
Which that strip price out there, which when he talks about, so he's talking about futures prices. In the future, he's taking those strip prices, which that's in the $60 range.
$67 forever. I
They
don't
want
believe the
that.
Saudis will be literally will be
today?
bankrupt if prices stay at
Well, I saw
$67 forever.
76 today. I don't know. Look at it now. See what it is. I don't know. Maybe we
You
have a
saw
prop we don't
81?
even know about.
You know
Now,
now
I track the futures.
this gas price is too high now, but this is per MCF and this is 1,500 BTU gas.
That's even richer. If you guys remember what we were getting paid on the Robertson wells over the last several years, it's about I think it's 12 to 1,300 BTU, and we get strip liquids, and we end up giving equivalent prices when gas was $3. We were getting like $8-9.
$8-9, yeah.
Yeah, you saw
Yeah.
that. This
That's
is even
per-
richer gas. out
That's
here.
per
good.
MCF, and that's what this is based on. It's not a per million BTU, which is what you see on the board.
So it's 1.5 times that.
If we go to the next one at $70 flat, $70 flat oil, it's still it's 5 1/4 to 1, a little bit better return, a little bit lower internal rate of return, 5 1/4 to 1 on your money at 135,000 barrels. So the economics are pretty strong even on the conservative case. This next one is a $1.2 million sensitivity case.
Now he's assuming that it costs us 1.2 million. We believe a vertical we can drill and complete for 950, but this assumes 1.2 million.
What were those two previous ones? Were they 950 or 1.2?
They were 950. This still gives you a little bit under a 4-to-1 on your money, and 40% internal rate of return at 1.2 million with a 130,000 barrel case. So I mean the economics are still robust on a very conservative case, high drill and complete cost. It's really hard to kill this on the economics.
And you mentioned not around 950 was the all-in per barrel.
We're going to AFE it at 1.2 just to be sure. Prices
We're
are going
gonna-
up and down.
We're gonna pay, but we'll get a return of capital if it doesn't cost that much. But we'll have enough money in there
To get it done.
to make sure we get it done.
This next curve is on the horizontal case. And what I did, if we go to, let's zoom out just, this includes, these are the old Devon wells that, awful frac technology.
The ones to the north.
Ones to the north that are,
northeast, yeah.
I average them in to be sure, and this is the type curve you get. And I might add, Collie Gillespie does Ballard's Reserve, so they're very familiar with what Ballard is doing just south of us. This is that new 1,000,000 barrel well, and all they did is pumped about 1,000 pounds a foot of a frac stimulation. It's nothing exotic. I mean, stuff we do routinely every day, and that's the production. This is older frac technology, and that's what modern frac technology will do for you there. And again, the reservoir quality we have is quite a bit better.
Well, they seem to decline way less than what we have in Oklahoma. I mean,
That's
Just
correct,
looking
yeah.
at
Understand some of the difference here. The Mississippi line where we're at is about 4,400 feet. This is a little 2,000 plus feet deeper, so you've got deeper. Deeper is higher pressure and more reserves,
Got it.
which is part of the equation.
Economics on Collie Gillespie's case are 640,000 barrel case. This is the strip forecast. Even at 640,000 barrels, which is a nice projected return, this gives you a 5-to-1 on your money. Vertical could be better.
And this is the horizontal case.
Yes.
What's the AFE on the horizontal?
5.585.
5.4?
Yeah, almost 5.6 million.
One we skipped over. Let's go back to this plot right here, Scott.
Vertical better.
This is the 219,000 barrel type curve case on the vertical. You saw the type curve. It gives you 6.5-to-1 on your money. So even on the average type curve case, this is a 6.5-to-1 with a $1.2 million cost versus a 5-to-1 with $5.5 million cost.
so that's why we're doing the vertical first.
That's right.
It's gonna be a lot of verticals.
If we hit wells like
And the environment up there politically is good. They're pro oil and gas.
Wyoming understands they can't run that state without oil and gas.
Richard brought up a point before you got here, and we looked it up. Wyoming has no state income tax, personal or corporate.
That's right.
So no complicated tax returns for us.
So if you guys win the lottery tonight, you need to buy a house in Jackson Hole and establish residency there. Because if you win the lottery tonight, you'll have plenty of money. That's for sure. But
Want to do the next one down?
yeah, well, next one down, $70 oil.
Right, $70. There you go.
Again, it's still a 5-to-1, but 180% internal rate of return. So you get a faster payout with a horizontal, but the ultimate returns are lower. Now, this is based on 640. If we make a 1,000,000 barrel well or better, because of our reservoir quality, it's a different game.
Well, then if you make $1 million plus, you almost double these numbers down here.
That's right.
And
theoretically-
this is fixed at $70 oil.
Yeah.
Some people believe oil's going to be more than 70 in the future. Me, anyway.
Let's scroll down a page here. See. not to belabor this, but that's kind of the summary. The
Okay,
next-
did we cover everything you wanted to look at here? I'd like to go back to that big map again, because that tells the story on a large scale. We can wrap it up with that. Here it is. Yeah. These are the
So-
horizontal fields. This is the older these are newer horizontals. And we've compared the reservoir quality.
This kind of illustrates the thick is here for Parkman and it's here for Ferguson. So that's why this is still here. It's four-way inside shot on the sand.
But
With
this over
ex-
to the left is Parkman, down there to the southwest, that's Parkman right there.
Yes, that's Parkman right there. That same sand, easy correlation on this cross section, is productive in 4 wells in the field. One thing, let's go back to, let's scroll down a little bit more. We didn't talk about structure. Right here. Okay, again, these 4 wells produced from it, and I didn't, let's go back to this slide first, Scott. This is, the key to this deal, as I mentioned, wet, down dip, move up dip into the production, great quality reservoir. There's a 300,000 barrel well just off the map right here. But 470, 250, tight, gets wet here. So the key is where's the water contact in our play? All right, now we've got, based on this well, oil water contact at 2,400, maybe 2,390. Number 7, made 300 feet of oil, 100 feet down to 2,392. So you can work your way through here, oil saturated core all the way down to 2426. And you can come into it that 2,400 is the contact.
Okay?
All this acreage is up dip of that. The base of the sand at the 10 Ike right here. Now let's go to our structure map. The base of the sand at that 10 Ike is 25 feet down, so we'll be at a location here. We're right at 100 feet up dip to the base of that well, and there's it's pretty easy structure out here. It's kind of like a rake. Nothing to worry about until you see this little fault down here, well away from our production, and again a 4-way inside shot on sand and structural control. Now for exploration guys, there's you look at it as 3 kinds of risk that can hurt you in a deal like this. First is, is there reservoir quality? Well, we know there is because we're inside 4 wells that have it. Second, structure. We got a lot of control on structure to know where we are. The third is timing or trap. Was the trap there when oil and gas migrated in there? Well, again, we're inside production. So we satisfy all 3 kinds of risk. That is something that can get you in trouble. So we feel pretty good about all 3 of those. Let's go back up to our cross section. It's got about 4 up. This one. This is the Murdoch Federal. I showed you produced at a 60, started out 60% oil cut, went to 50. This is the 10 Ike well, perforated in both the Parkman and the Ferguson, tested a 40% oil cut. So we're between a 40 and a 60% initial oil cut. Will be 100 foot high to a 40% oil cut producer.
That's important. We're up dip from this
Up
well.
dip to production in the zone. This is pretty much top of the structure. We won't get high to this well. But we're up dip of a strong oil cut.
And above the water.
The chances of making a well are good. I always ask the geologist, how confident are you? I mean, is this 100%?
Questions
They never want to say 100%.
questions we hate. Frankly. I mean, I'm not here to tell you it's a sure thing. I like this prospect a lot. I'm going to take 15 to 25% myself. Hard dollars. So we'll all be on the same side of the table as far as the production, the infrastructure, everything goes with it.
which is different than what we've done before. I mean, it's,
Yeah,
Robertson's a
that's
good case, but,
What's the cash flow right now?
It's a little bit above break even. You know, we make about 20 grand a month, something like that, if we're not doing a workover.
To operate it cost about 20 grand, and we're getting about 20 grand if we need, or we get 20
20
grand?
net, yeah,
20 net.
yeah. We think we can, I mean, we're operating the existing producers for 15 to 2,300 a month apiece. So these economics, by the way, there's a slide in here that shows that I ran 4,000 a month on the vertical wells or 5,000 a month on the horizontals. Because all we got is power. You know, is the only difference between the two.
and everything is gonna be at cost. We're not paying turnkey or markups. Everything's cost. What was the situation with the federal leases?
Let's go back to our apartment map
Which one is that?
down this one. Okay, now I may have to take this in a second. There's a big environmental lawsuit out here against the BLM that they did not do a big enough environmental study when they sold a bunch of leases in 2017. Now, allegedly, they've reached are close to a settlement on that deal. They were trying to make the BLM go back and do an environmental study on all those leases. And that's created a bit of a furor up here. We don't have any of those problems because this has been HBP since the 50s and under a water flood unit since the 60s. All this acreage is HBP by that Murdoch Federal. Now that track right there is BLM Minerals that's open. Anschutz has 120 acres right here that's involved in that 2017 sale. It's not part of our unit. But they've said they'll farm it out to us. Said, I don't know, what you do with it. There's a couple of different ways we could go. If we want to, make a bigger 640 acre horizontal unit, we can pool those guys. And whoever owns it will have to either join or get out. So, there's a couple of different ways to.
Just say, somehow I got into
Sure you want to see
editing
that?
and I'd moved stuff around and wasn't trying to, excuse me.
Yeah, just
Undo it.
Do an undo there. Look at that, I was moving. What I was trying to do is blow this up so you could see the location. Richard had some concerns about the location, reservoir depletion here, but that's,
you're 660 out of the corner here and 660 out of the corner there. So you've got that diagonal is about 1,700 feet away. Whatever that math is.
and you estimate that the reservoir drainage of this well is just what up here, 62 acres?
Assuming it gets to close to 200,000 barrels at 62 acres, it's less than that now.
Okay. The fact that we have the production held by production is real important. That means as long as we keep some production on lease, then we maintain all the minerals.
I think the lease price is a big deal.
I do too. I mean, buying, and that's, Richard, you asked me what got me more excited about this when I started looking at the value that we're picking up here in the buy-in. Huh?
The 900.
950.
Yeah.
I need to take this call. There's a guy on the
Yeah,
field,
go ahead,
actually.
go
Just
ahead.
Give me a second.
All right. Other discussion here, guys? Are we about ready to wrap it up?
I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. John, any questions? Okay. Okay, guys, I appreciate everybody being with us here today. This is potentially our next project. Assuming we go forward, we'll have a offering memorandum put together, and this will be part of our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for having us.
You bet.